Welcome to the Influential Personal Brand Podcast. This is the place where we help mission-driven messengers just like you learn how to build and monetize your personal brand. My name is Rory Vaden, and I'm the co-founder of Brand Builders Group, a Hall of Fame speaker, and New York Times bestselling author. And this show is to help experts learn how to become more wealthy and well-known. I know you're going to love it. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. You are about to get backstage access to one of the biggest personal brands in the world. Not only one of the biggest personal brands, but somebody who I admire and respect for how he's turned his personal brand into an actual scalable business with enterprise value, something extremely rare that we see. And this is my pal, a Brand Builders Group client now, Ryan Serhant. And if you don't know Ryan, you will. He's quite possibly the most famous real estate agent in the world. So he became really popular while selling some of the most expensive properties in Manhattan and New York and other areas to celebrities. And he was the TV star of the two-time Emmy-nominated series Million Dollar Listing on Bravo. He since has had multiple TV shows, and he has another one coming out soon on Netflix. But he's also, more importantly, the CEO of Serhant, which is a tech-forward real estate brokerage known for really cutting-edge innovation, extravagant listings, a full-service media production company, and also he has basically like a whole nother half, which does digital education, which is a platform that has more than 14,000 members in 110 countries. And all of these things together have led to Ryan accumulating a personal brand with more than 4 million plus followers on social media. He's the best-selling author of multiple books, and he writes columns for Forbes and other places, and has just really done a phenomenal job of turning a personal brand into a huge business. And so we invited him on the show to say, hey, could we hear some of those secrets? So Ryan, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I was like, man, when is it? When's the intro going to end? We have so much to talk about.
I know.
So much intro.
Well,
So
you've
much
done a lot
introduction.
of, you've done so many things. Like that doesn't even scratch the surface of it. But let's start by the most recent thing, which is what brought us together, was your book, Brand It Like Serhant.
Yeah.
Tell us about Brand It Like Serhant. Why did you write that book? It's the third book in a trilogy. So let's start there, and then we can kind of go backwards.
Sure. The book, it just came out. And thank you for all your help, by the way. Really appreciate it. It definitely stands alone, for people who want to go and build a brand in 2024 and beyond. Right. It is very, very tactical, no fluff. You want to build a brand from scratch that's personal, so a personal brand, or you want to build a product brand. And it has everything you need to know from, social channels to working with PR. It has our whole, what we call our Serhant brand strategy system, which I can get into. But it's really, really great. And I wrote it because I couldn't find something like it. There's branding books that are old, that talk a lot about newspapers and radio. But it's a different world now. Right, and everything moves incredibly, incredibly fast. As part of a trilogy, right? I wrote my first book in 2018 called Sell It Like Serhant. We did a TV show about it for Bravo, where I was like helping people sell wine and sell body and bikini waxing memberships and all this kind of stuff. So that was fun. And then that got turned into like an education business called Sell It Like Serhant .com, which grew and built, and literally 22 minutes ago, the evolution of that brand just turned into sellit.com.
Come on,
sellit.com.
sellit.com.
Sellit.com. So that's been super exciting. So that was sales tools, right? That book was the sales tool belt. Like if you never sold anything, you don't classify yourself as a salesperson, you hate salespeople, you hate selling, whatever. If you want to control your own life, you want to be an entrepreneur, a gig worker, you want to have a side hustle, you want to sell real estate, sell cars, sell software, whatever, read this. It's your Bible. And I followed that up with my second book, Big Money Energy, which really was, hey, okay, I gave you all the tools. But if you don't have the confidence to use them, then it's going to be a great tool belt that sits in your closet. So how can you start acting and carrying yourself like the you of the future? You know where you want to get to 2 years from today. So be that person today. And so how do you do that? And so I looked at those two books, and it was the sales skills you need, the confidence to use them. But then if no one knows what you're selling, it doesn't matter how confident you are. It doesn't matter how many tools you have in your tool belt. You're never going to sell anything to anybody. So how do you create awareness? How do you cut through attention? How do you really build, right, a brand, both for yourself or for a product? And that's where branded Like Serhant comes into play.
Yep.
Spent the
Totally.
last 2 years writing it and putting it together.
So one of the things, I mean, you've done masterfully is PR. And specifically, I can you share with us the story of like how did how did you get on TV? How does it work? Like, how does it even work to get a show with Bravo or Netflix? Because you've done that not just once, multiple times. You got your new Netflix show coming out in
Yeah.
June, and like that's very few people have been able to do that. So, like, did you just call them or like send a submission or show up to a casting call or what?
Well, the first time I was ever on TV was on a soap opera. So I trained to be an actor for a long time, my whole life. Like I was terrible at sports, but I liked being on stage. And so I did theater since I was a little kid and made like little home movies and all that. I went to college. I was a double major in English literature, so writing books and theater, right? So performance. And I moved to New York City in 2006 to do theater. My dream was Broadway. That was my dream, like to be on stage for Broadway. If TV or film worked out, that would be awesome. But I didn't want to move to California. It was the other end of the country. I'd never even been there before. And so I was like, I've been in New York City before. I know people in New York. I'll go make that happen. And I promptly ran out of all my money. And because when you go to theater school,
Which
they
probably
teach you how
took
to be
like a few days, right? Like in New York, anyone can burn through like a lot of money pretty
all of
quickly.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I had what I thought was like 5 years of savings, and I was out of it in less than 2 years. And I made some money along the way. Like I did some regional theater and made some money. I did a soap opera called As the World Turns, which isn't around anymore, and
Nice. Yeah.
made some money from that and for a while. And then it just basically was down to my last couple $1,000s. And the classic, how am I going to eat? How am I going to pay rent? Do I go become a bartender, a waiter? What do I do? And a friend said, get into real estate. It's the same thing. I was great at improv, so I do improv classes. And your acting classes really are about breathing, right? They're about listening. They're about morphing into this conversation and that conversation. It's about using your voice. And selling is the same exact thing.
Huh.
Memorize information, you meet strangers, and you play an improv game, right? And so he's like, listen, get your real estate license, rent apartments. New York City is tens of thousands of rental apartments and rental agents. You can make $1,000 a day. You can make 100 grand a year. No one knows what to do. The city is all upside down. It's crazy. So do that. So I got my license the day Lehman Brothers files for bankruptcy in
Oh,
2008, and everyone gets out of the business. But I already had no money. So I was like, par for the course. I just thought the business was really, really hard. Um, and I kind of, it was real estate was my survival job. I had no intention of being a real estate agent or a broker or salesman. I had all the intention of buying time. It's like, if I rent an apartment a month, and if I can make my rent and pay for food and incidentals, which was about $2,000 a month, I could stay in New York and not have to move home to Colorado, where my parents were at the time. And so
what? You're
that was
from
my.
Colorado? I didn't know that. I'm
I'm
from
from
Colorado.
well, I'm from Texas. I grew up outside Boston. We moved a lot as a little kid, but when I graduated high school, my parents sold our house in Boston and they moved to Colorado. So if I were to go home, at that time, I would have moved home to Colorado to live with my parents.
Gotcha.
And so I did my first rental deal. I was like, huh, wow. Okay, so if I just work, I can make money. Like I was so used to working for free, being an actor in New York City, you do everything for free. You agree everything's for free until it's not. And so I spent 2 years basically working for free. And so I just was totally fine with not getting paid. And I didn't need anyone to pat me on the back. I was just excited that if someone decided not to take an apartment from me, they took it because of another apartment or because they didn't want that apartment. It was never because of the color of my hair or my face or my voice, or
Mm,
they thought I wasn't sexy enough. Right. So it wasn't as personal. And so a lot of salespeople get into sales and they, 90% of them churn out because the rejection is just too hard and they just don't want to deal with it. For me, like my whole life had been rejection. So I was kind of fine with it. I didn't bank on anybody or anything ever. I just knew I was going to bet on myself because that's why I moved to New York in the first place. And so then I started doing sales and I got my first sales commission check of like a couple $1,000s. It was like, holy moly. And I actually liked it. I like touching base with people. I like seeing apartments all day. I like running around and I was totally fine working for free. Um,
amazing.
because, in sales, your success is your client's success. Right.
Amen.
And so then I built, and a little over a year later, there was a casting call that got put out for the New York version of a show called $1 Million Listing, which had been on the air for a couple years in Los Angeles on Bravo. And so I saw that and was like, oh, that'd be so weird if I did a reality show. I know how to be in front of a camera. And so I just went to an open casting call. 3,000 agents showed up. You have to remember at that time, I think there was 50,000 real estate agents in New York City, and that was in 2008. There's something like 80,000 now. And so I went to an open casting call at the Hudson Hotel. And then 6 months later, they called me and were like, hey, we whittled it down to 1,000 people. Submit a written application. And then a couple months later, they called me back and they're like, hey, we're doing a Skype interview. We want to get to know you better. And they had whittled it down to a couple hundred at that point. And then they whittled it down to 16 people to find the final agents that would be on that show. And they flew a whole production crew in from Los Angeles and said, we're going to follow all 16 of you around New York City for half a day. Show us what your day's like. Show us how you operate. What do you do? And I made sure that half day was the craziest half day in the history of real estate in New York City,
Nice.
because I had just gotten into the business. I was like, a half day in my life, I'll post some ads on the internet. I'll get a bagel. And so I didn't want it to be that. And so I made sure it was worth watching. And then they cast us, and
Wow.
so out of obscurity. So then we did $1 Million Listing. It premiered in 2012 and ran for 10 years. And from that, we did spinoff shows. My wedding was a spinoff show. My renovation of my home was a spinoff show. Sell Like Serhant was a spinoff show. And then, I saw the world change during that experience, right? Like when $1 Million Listing first came out, like 2 to 3 million people would tune in live every week, right? There was no Netflix. Netflix was DVDs. There was no video. There was no Instagram in 2012, right? There was no Instagram. There was YouTube was like reruns of Kevin Bacon movies and scenes. Like it was just a different world. And then Instagram comes out, right? So social becomes a thing. The heyday of reality TV kind of really kicks off 2013 to like 2016. Netflix moves to streaming. House of Cards comes out. Reality TV explodes everywhere, and people's attention starts being grabbed. And I saw that like 2016, 17, really 17, 18, 19 ratings started going down for all TV shows because YouTube became a real thing, right? The next generation they weren't watching TV anymore. Everyone was just watching. As long as you had Wi-Fi, they had all the entertainment they need. And then TikTok hit and everything really changed. So it's like, okay, so one day cable TV isn't going to exist anymore. And so I need to plan for my next step. I built a whole career and a whole business on the back of a reality TV show. What's next for me? So I started my own company in 2020 called Serhant. We do real estate brokerage services, education services, and we have a production company. So we do media services. And I created a pitch reel, right? Where I took a couple of my camera guys and we created a reel and I pitched it around. And we took it to Netflix, we took it to HBO Max, we took it to Peacock, we took it to Amazon Prime, we took it to Hulu. And we got offers from almost all of them. But Netflix was the strongest, and they already had a world built, right? They already had a viewership that understood reality real estate, and they had the biggest global audience. And so for my business, even though those other networks are fun and they're cool, like I want to make sure that someone in India, Japan, Brazil, globally would have the opportunity to come into contact with our brand. And so we chose Netflix. We shot it all last year, and it comes out in a couple months.
dude.
That's a really long answer to your
No,
super simple
yeah,
question.
but that, I mean, that's so powerful. I mean, I love how God uses your, backstory and pulls it all together, right? Like one of the things that we always say is you're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. And like there you are not making it as an actor, starting with real estate, and then all of a sudden with a casting call of 3,000 people, who is
Yeah.
more qualified to know exactly what those people need and to make something worth watching. When you say you pitched it, okay, like in 2020, you say we created a pitch reel and then we took it around to
Yeah.
Peacock, etc. What does that mean exactly? Who are you taking it to? How do you take it to them? How do you find these people? I mean, I assume it's somewhat of a referrals and prospecting game like anything, but is it basically like, do
Yeah.
you hire a showrunner and they like take your pitch deck and show it to producers, or how does that work?
The showrunner came later, once the show got picked up because there was no show to run prior to that. That was a whole separate process. I had been on TV previously, so
Yeah.
I had I was in a fortunate position where I had a great agent at UTA. Agents are good people, right? They can get business done. So I had a great agent at UTA that I kind of brainstormed with for a bit. The production company that I worked with, World of Wonder, based in LA, that did Million Dollar Listing and all my spin-off shows with me on Bravo, were down to try something new with me. So it's like, this is going to be different. I don't want to make Million Dollar Listing again for the new world. Like, I want to do something that kind of redefines the genre a bit, and it's going to be weird. Maybe it won't work. I have no idea. And they said, okay, well, so we made our first reel like on our own, so that we weren't really spending tons of money and wasting it. And then my agent and World of Wonder, the production company, set up the meetings because that's all they do, right? That's what their jobs are. It's like, if you're like, all right, how do I go buy a house in New York? You find a good agent and you say, this is what I want. The agent has all the relationships and has been doing this for 10 years, and they set up those appointments. They know exactly who to talk to and they don't waste any time. So we did it was like our Zoom tour, right, where we would send our little reel over and they would watch it, and then we would talk about it on those pitches, like, hey, here's the vision. So you just saw 5 minutes of kind of like a taste of what we're looking at, which was our company in New York, our building in Soho that I'm standing in right now, kind of our crazy cast of characters, and really helping define what the universe would look like. So I think the most successful TV shows create a world, right? They create a
Mm.
universe that really grabs the viewer, and then you have to hook and release, right? So how are you hooking people and then giving them a cliffhanger and then releasing them, and then giving them a hook, giving them a cliffhanger and then releasing them? And so there's kind of an algorithm that you look at when you're telling story long form. I mean, short form too, for sure, but also long form. And so then we walked the Netflix executives, the HBO Max executives, Hulu, Peacock, Amazon Prime. Amazon gave us a great offer, a great one. And they were super, super bullish. And the only reason I didn't go with Amazon, and that was a tough, I remember that, like that summer, which was summer of 22, when we kind of got the green light. These things take forever, by the way. I
Yeah.
remember like going back and forth and just saying, what do we do? Who do we go with? Like, how do I, like, it's such a big decision. How do I choose? And the way we did it was like, all right, well, why am I doing this? I don't care about being famous. I don't care about selling toasters. Like, our business is the most important. What's going to be the most entertaining? Because we're going to make the same show regardless of the network. But what's going to be best for business? And we just looked. We're like, all right, so we got a client.
Did you say
We
you
just
do
sold a
you
big.
do want it to be most entertaining, or you're saying you
Yeah,
didn't
no,
care
we want
about
it to, which is two. You want it to be entertaining, but we know what's going to be entertaining because we know how to make great TV. But we also want it to be great for the business. Otherwise, it's a waste of time, right? So like I don't want to spend all this time, all this effort, and go make a TV show and have it sit in a box.
right?
Would Sure, super entertaining in that box,
Or
but
it's
no
just
one's
a
going to see it.
distraction that pulls you away from the
Yeah,
business. But if
it's
you
so
can make
much
them
work, man.
aligned, all of a sudden one is like jet fuel for the other.
Yeah, so exactly. So we really looked at it. And so then I was like, okay, well, where are our clients right now coming from, that are using us, and they were across Asia, South America, India, different parts of Europe. Like, we had a buyer in Croatia. And I just went to all of them and I said, hey, do you watch Netflix, Amazon, or where do you see TV? Every single one of them said they had Netflix. And it
Whoa.
just, that was just the differentiator. I was like, I got to be in front of people in Croatia, Sao Paulo, Patagonia, India, etc. And New York is it's a very New York show. It's gritty, it's tough. It feels very New York, and around the world, New York's an interesting place for people to see. Like it's a wild little island that we have here.
But you're
Called.
deliberately going after, I mean, multiple times, just this, you've said about the importance of the international audience. So why
Big
is
world out
that
there.
so important to you, international versus just going like, why not just dominate New York, or why not just dominate the US, or like, other markets?
So New York is where we dominate in real estate. So, I'm based in New York City. I live in New York. There's enough real estate here to go around. It's a big part of our business, but our brand has grown pretty globally now. And so we want to take as much advantage of it as we possibly can. So sellit.com, right, now we have members in 128 countries, most of which I've never even been to. And so if we're going to create a TV show and spend 2 years making it, like, it is a significant amount of work, and really put the time and effort behind it, then I want to make sure that it has the biggest opportunity possible, and that's why, really, like, what's the best platform to be on? Like, when it was cable TV only, then you're like, you really run the risk of, okay, well, a lot of people are going to see it, but if it's not any good, it'll go off the air pretty quickly. Streaming's actually kind of worse, because if it's not good, that thumbnail goes away real fast, right? That algorithm just starts showing you more things to keep you in the platform. Like Netflix is just, it's a social media app, basically, right? They want to keep you in there, hook you in. Don't leave us. Don't go to Amazon. Don't go to Hulu, right? Stay.
Yeah, it's amazing just to even hear your brain of how far ahead you're thinking. Like the patience it takes to pursue a TV show, knowing it could take 2 years to get a deal, 2 years to film it, then it finally gets out, and at any moment they could drop you, right? They can pull the thumbnail down. Um, that's super, super powerful. So like, um, talk to me about now a lot of reality TV show stars. We actually have a lot of brand builders clients, like a fair number who were on The Bachelor, or were an NFL player, or like,
Yeah.
a lot of people have been on TV, or they've had their minute of fame. And then the moment the thing goes away, they struggle to monetize. They struggle to keep the momentum going. You didn't do that. Like, you have gotten bigger and bigger. Like, everything has sort of snowballed. And even small business owners, I think that's the thing, is going, how do you turn your personal brand into a business? How do you scale it past you? What are the things that you've done internally? How do you think strategically about sort of scale and enterprise value, and making it extend beyond the person of Ryan?
So I'm always thinking at minimum 12 months out. All the work that I'm doing today is not to the benefit of Ryan tomorrow. It's to the benefit of Ryan in April of 2025. Like, that's all the work we're doing today. Like, March was across our businesses. March was our biggest revenue month in company history, right? And it's because of the work that we did a year ago, and it's really important for me always to remind our employees of that, because they're like, oh, we can take time off. I'm like, well, no, because all the work you've done from the past year got us to today. Now imagine what could happen if we even dialed that down even further, where we're going to be a year from for now. So you're always working for future you. Like, that's my world. That's the world I live in. Nothing is for me today. Like, I go to the gym this morning. It has no effect on my body today, right? Am I more mentally aware? Sure, right? But I'm doing it for my long-term health, so that Ryan next year, 2 years from now, Ryan, who's 80, can look back and say, hey, thanks. Thanks for doing that. I know you didn't want to. I know you were tired. I know it was stressful. I know you sometimes had sleepless nights. Sometimes you cried because you were lonely, right? And there's too much responsibility on your shoulders, but thank you. That's how I think about it. In terms of pulling myself out of it, I was a real estate broker for 12 years. Everything was me, right? I had a team. They were, but they helped me. They were assistants on the business. It was like, so how do I scale sales when I'm kind of selling is myself, right? Because the apartments are there, the houses are there, but what I'm really selling is using Ryan to go to those houses or to sell those houses.
Totally.
Like what's scalable that way? So let me build a brand. Let me focus a lot on talking about Serhant and not just Ryan Serhant.
Mm.
I have a funky last name. It is Czech. And so not a lot of people have it. So I could use it, right? Because it's every time someone mispronounces it and says Serhant or Serhant or Seacrest, it's great, right? It just means they're thinking. And that was a big part of creating early on. I didn't start Serhant until 2020, but I knew I was going to eventually, which is why I wrote Sell It Like Serhant in 2018. I mean, we started writing it in 2016. So like kind of 4 years ahead of time. And then with the brand, right? Our brand strategy system that Brand It Like Serhant, the book really goes into, is 3 phases. So it's core identity, consistent content, and then amplification or shouting it from the mountaintop. And so I did those exercises. Like, what is the core identity of Serhant? In as much as how it's different from Ryan, right? So like, what's Ryan? And then what is Serhant? Now let's create consistent content around Serhant being separate from Ryan. Let's build a production arm that is just pushing out the product brand and focusing on those product successes in that kind of third period, which is the amplification. So let's make sure that there are publications that are just pushing the brand, and then let's align ourselves with other successful people under the Serhant brand so that they have their own personal brands, but they're using Serhant to power them. That's going to help us over time slowly build that brand away from just me. And the first year, it definitely didn't work. Fucking killed me. Second year, it definitely didn't work. Still killed me. Third year was like, all right, so it's working. And we started expanding. So it's like, what do I do in North Carolina? Like, what is Serhant in these different states and markets? Like, I'm not there. How does this work? And so it started working. And then this year, we're really kind of off to the races. That's kind of high level.
Fifth year. In the
Well,
fifth year.
2020, we weren't legal until like January 2021. So all 21, 22, 23. So it took 3 fiscal years. And so we're at the beginning of 2024. So we're like into our 4th year.
Yeah, and I would say like that it's so interesting to hear that. It's great to have that on a story because that's what we see for a new personal brand. Like if they don't have a TV show or something pop, like even just a business in general, like the first 2 years suck. The third year, you kind of start to see momentum. Year 4 and 5, it starts to take off and you can see the light. And then it's like by year 10, you're going, I am unfairly paid. I'm getting unfair rewards for all the work, as you said, that you put in. So
Yeah.
I want to point y'all back. So Brand It Like Serhant. There's this 3-part system. It's all in the book, Brand It Like Serhant. So you guys can go get it. Ryan, where do you want people to go to learn? Obviously, they can buy Brand It Like Serhant anywhere, but like, where should people go if they want to connect with you and follow up? And
At Ryan Serhant anywhere. The book is Brand It Like Serhant. You can get that anywhere books are sold. You go to the website, branditlikesirhant.com to check it out. For sales training, you can go to sellit.com as of 46 minutes ago. And any real estate services, anything, we're up and down the East Coast, and it's just serhant.com.
it's really, really cool. The last question I have for you, man, is I know that there's had to have been some dark nights and some heavy moments. You do have a lot of jobs, a lot of pressure, a lot of things weighing on you. You got family, right? You got daughter, you got married, and in those moments where inevitably you come across a little bit of feeling overwhelmed, a little bit of feeling that pressure, days when things fall apart, people quit, customers unhappy, the dream you thought was going to happen starts to look like it's falling apart. Like, what do you do to keep yourself going in those moments specifically, in case someone listening right now happens to be in one of those?
So I tell myself always, right? Because nothing is bad forever. Time heals all wounds. You have great days, you have awful days. The greatest day I've ever had, I haven't even lived it yet. And reminding myself of that is a kick in the butt to get out of bed and to actually go and do the thing. Because maybe that's today. Like maybe today is the greatest day I've ever had. Like that could be awesome. On the sales side, I sell lots of things all day long. The greatest deal I've ever done, I haven't even done it yet.
Hmm.
Like I remember when we started the company and it was summer 2020 in New York City, lockdown, not allowed to go outside. There's SWAT, there's bodies in Central Park. You turn on the TV, there's a death clicker. Okay. The George Floyd riots happen in June. It's a really, really bad time for our country. It was really, really tough. All sales stopped for me. All real estate sales in New York City were dead. Every deal I had went into immediate litigation. It was the fucking worst. Any money I had that was like in the stock market sold off 10,000 points, right? It was just brutal. And I'm like, I'm going to start my own company right now. I was also in the middle of renovating my house right at that point, which is a cash heavy operation. And I just had my first baby. So it was a lot. And I was like, man, all I got to do is just every day's a new day. Like every day's a new day. The greatest day I've ever lived, I haven't even lived it yet. The greatest deal I've ever done, I haven't even done it yet. I just got to push forward. And you know what? Everything's going to be okay eventually. It always is, no matter what, unless we get hit by a comet and we're the dinosaurs and it's over forever. And then if that happens, then fucking who cares? I just got to keep it moving. And when things are bad, this is when you should build because you can't get these moments back. Like when things are great, of course you're going to start your own company like every other idiot, right? When things are bad, everyone's so scared. So go do it. Go build. And so we just buckled down and I looked at it with a glass half full. It's like, all right, so COVID happened. Everything sucks. Well, it looks like I just got the spring and summer markets for free. Like, when am I ever going to get all this time that I don't have to work? Like, I'm not in showings. I'm not on podcast. Like, I wasn't doing, everything was shut down. Filming was shut down. Everything was shut down. This is insane. Like, if I wanted to go start a business today, I'd be like, I need 6 months of quiet. I just got to buckle down and just go do it. I'm never going to get that again. So, boom, glass half full. Awesome. You know what else is awesome? Everyone's expectations are going to be so low. I don't have to go that crazy. Like if this was 2019 or 2024, I'd have to do a parade if I was starting my own thing. In 2020, I went to the press. I was like, hey, I'm starting my own company. And they're like, are you crazy? Are you sick? Do you have long COVID? And they're like, you should do a test. Are you wearing gloves right now? Like, no, we're building for the future. Everything's going to be okay. It's like, man, if I could do one deal, if I did like a $20 million sale when we kicked off the company, that would just be like the greatest thing ever. And we started the company. A couple months later, I sold a house in Palm Beach for $140 million.
Whoa.
And the whole world changed. The market changed overnight, right? And it's been a rocket ship ever since. And so the greatest day you've ever had, you haven't even lived it yet,
Man, I love that. I love that. Well, brother, thank you for making a little bit of time for us. We'll link to the book
course.
and everything. And it's been an honor to get to know you a little bit. I love the way that your mind works and the heart and the energy. I mean, big money energy. Like, talk about the enthusiasm that you have all day, every day, and you bring to so much stuff. I mean, it's legendary. And so to have some insight into what you're doing behind the scenes with these 3 books and just to get to meet you a little bit, I really, really appreciate it, brother. And we'll be following
Thanks,
you.
man.
We wish you the best.